Hello and welcome back to another scripting request tutorial. Animating characters and scripting them can be a little bit difficult to learn, so that's why I wanted to make this video. There are really two parts to this. There's the creating the animation and exporting it, and then there's the scripting it into a tool or something. So I'll walk you through both. I'll have timestamps in the description if you want to skip to a certain section. And yeah, open up Studio, go into the Avatar tab, and then click on Rig Builder. It matters which one of these two you pick. R15 has more joints than R6. I'm just going to use R6 because it's simpler, but more complex animations use R15. Body shape isn't really important, it's just the type of model that you want. And then I'll use my avatar. Now the reason we need this rig is so that we can actually create the animations. You can do rigs with custom characters, but it's a little bit too complex for this video. There are some other videos out there that can show you. I just want to get through the very basics. Okay, once you have this rig here, open up the animation editor. And it'll open this window down here. Might want to close it to output. And then select a rig, give it a name. And then once you hit create, it should open up to this graph here. This is pretty complex if you've never used an animation editor before. Basically what you're going to do is you're going to go along this timeline, select parts, move them a little bit, and then go to another time, and then move them to a different position. And the animator will do the work of getting the arm from this to this in a smooth motion, like that. These things here are called keyframes, and they're the points that the part, in this case the arm, goes to. Another thing about keyframes is that you can change the way it interpolates between this position and this position. If you right click on this keyframe here, and then change the easing style or the easing direction, it'll give it a different effect. All of the keyframes are linear, so it'll be a very straight motion to the next keyframe. But if we change it to something like cubic, it has a little bit of momentum. You can see that. It kind of bounces. And there's also the easing direction, so will it bounce at the start of the animation, the end of the animation, or both? It looks more natural like this. To be honest, a lot of this is just playing around with things, seeing how things look. Okay, I'm going to create a very quick and simple animation, and then I'll show you how to export it. Each body part has its own keyframes. So you can see that all the keyframes so far on the right arm are cubic, but all of the ones on the left arm are just linear. Remember to change the new keyframes as well if you want it to be a different easing style. You can also see that the only two body parts that are moving, the left arm and the right arm, are the only two body parts that appear here. This is very, very important later on. If there are other body parts that aren't moving, but you still have keyframes for them, you should probably remove them. You can see that I have the left leg in the animation track, but the left leg is not moving. There aren't any keyframes here. So it is safer to just delete this. Okay, I have my finished animation. If you want to toggle a loop for it, you can just click this button here and then play it. Really simple, nothing too complex, but you can go as crazy as you want. Now that I've finished it, it's a good idea to save. And then here's the important step, publish to Roblox. And this window should pop up. You can change any of these settings in here. I'm just going to leave them all default. Click save. And it should upload. Make sure you copy this ID. I'll show you how to get it if you don't have it, but it's easier if you just get it from there. Now that that's done, you can close the animation editor. And the rig should return to normal. I'm going to bring back up the output window. Okay, to play this animation in game, I'm going to use a tool. So I'm going into Starter Pack, creating a tool. I'll give it part as a handle. Make sure you name this handle, and this anchored property isn't true. Inside of the tool, I'm going to create a new local script. I'm going to call it Animate. I'm going to create a reference to the tool. And then I'm also going to get a reference to the player's character. So when the tool is activated, we want to play the animation. Oh, now is a good time to create the animation. Under the script, create a new animation, and then paste in the animation ID here that you have from before. If you lost it or whatever, go into Toolbox, and then once you're in Toolbox, go into Inventory, and then go into My Animations, and it should be the first one there. You can just right-click on it, and then copy the asset ID. It's very important that you create this animation object underneath the script, otherwise the entire thing just won't work. Oh, and then we should probably make a variable for it as well. And I actually forgot to create a reference to the character here, so do that. Okay, after all that, we can finally start to play the animation. So the first thing now that we need to do is find the animator. And I'll explain what this is in a second. Every single character that's created in Roblox has an animator underneath the humanoid. If you want to take a look at the rig, open it up, go into humanoid, you can see that there's an animator here. The animator is responsible for playing every animation on the character. So if you think about this in like a regular Roblox game, that's the character walking, jumping, swimming, it handles all of that. You have to have an animation, and you also have to have an animator. Okay, once you've got that, animator, load animation. And then you want to insert the animation from underneath the script. And this will return an animation track, so we actually do need a variable for this. Okay, now that we have the animation track, we can change a couple of things about the animation. I want my animation to loop for sure, so I can change the looped property of this to be true. So when it finishes, it'll keep playing. Next, I can play the animation, and it asks for a couple of things here. There's a fade time, which is basically like a transition from the animation that it's currently playing to the new animation that you're giving it. So I'm just going to put 0 for this. This is important, the wait. The animator looks at the animation tracks that it's currently trying to play, and if there are two body parts trying to play an animation at the same time, it will play the one with a higher weight. It might be easier to understand with an example. My animation that I made has the arms moving, but the walking animation also has the arms moving. If the animator tries to play both of the tracks at the same time, my animation would play because it has a higher weight value. So if I set it to 99, it's obviously going to play over the walking animation. And then speed, self-explanatory, I'm just going to set it to 1. And then that should be good. Please don't break. Please don't break. Please don't break. Okay, moment of truth. Wow. So you can see that when I have the tool out and the animation is playing, it'll always favor holding the tool animation rather than the arm going up and down. And that's because the tool holding animation has an extremely high weight value. I don't think any animation can really overpower this. But if I wanted to look at something like walking, my arms are supposed to be at my side, swinging back and forth, but instead they're still doing the animation. And this is why it was important earlier on to make sure that no other parts were included in the animation that weren't necessary. If I'd left the left leg in there, it would still be perfectly still, like this. I hope this was helpful. I hope this simplified things a little bit. Animation is such a tricky concept to learn. I can only help with the coding. I can't help with the animating. I'm a garbage animator, as you can probably tell. It takes a lot of time and practice to get good. But you know what? My dancing animation isn't that bad anyway.